What does it mean to be a registered voter? You told me that you're a registered Republican. What does it mean? Because in Lithuania, you get a ballot by your mail. You take the ballot, you take your ID, you go to a school, for instance. You show the ballot, you show your ID, you go to this cabin, you vote, and you're gone.
Well, there must not be any black people in Lithuania because I understand that they can't get IDs. So we can't allow that here because they're not able to get IDs according to the left.
How? How do they exist?
Yeah.
What about bank accounts, driver's license?
Well, we all know that is absolute absurd. We know that is a foolish notion. We know that that's also actually real racism for them to even suggest that, right? There's some great clips of people being asked, like a guy going around and asking, "Hey, do you have an ID?" Of the black people, right? And they're like, "Yeah." Where's the DMV? Oh, it's over here. You need to go turn left on, Main Street. Well, just showing the absurdity of this whole group of people. They don't have a voice, Bryce, because they are unable to get IDs and they're unable to function in society.
And they don't know what a computer is.
Yeah. Now, if that's the case, by the way, of either right or left, let's say the hillbillies in Appalachia, and I'm sorry, hillbillies, I love you guys, but let's say it's the poor of the poor. Okay, if you cannot basically function in society, you should not be voting. Okay, if you cannot actually go and get an idea and do the basic things to participate in society, you should not be trusted with your vote. So just on that very face, there are people that are going to be marginalized and they need to rise above their circumstances. The more you artificially bump them up, the worse it is for their communities. Okay, and that goes for any community that would be quote unquote marginalized or disadvantaged. What happens is they over time, like think about the Irish. Okay, so the Irish were bottom dwellers in our society when they first came here, escaping the potato famine. They were many of them were indentured servants when they came over here. They were mocked, reviled, diminished, hated on as an entire ethnic group. Okay. But because of their skin color, for whatever reason, they skipped what they did to black people, which is they marginalized them even further, suggested that they can't rise above their circumstances. They had this like open racism of low expectations, right? And they did that to black people. They didn't do it to Irish people. So Irish people over time, you had a person break out of that community and learn to read and develop a business and get after it in the ways that they needed to. And then their family and their descendants became stronger. And all of a sudden the community grew stronger and stronger and stronger. The black community used to have Black Wall Street, their own banks. Prior to the Civil Rights Act, they had a much stronger community. But what happened was they traded the Civil Rights Act and then they traded them for another form of slavery. And they helped them to essentially neuter themselves. What should have happened is they should have been allowed to rise, fight, claw, tooth, and nail up in our societal rungs. And then all of a sudden they would have been able to negotiate.
What's the Civil Rights Act?
When they ended all of the active racial laws in our country. Okay, so they, like you couldn't drink at the drinking fountain, whites only bathrooms, all those sort of things that were completely institutionalized systemic racism, right? Which they like to argue that we still have, but we don't have it. Okay, we do not have laws on the books that are racist, except for against white people, like affirmative action and things like that. But what happened was they traded one form of slavery for another, and they got them married to the welfare state. They wrecked their intact families. Used to be, they had very, very strong families. The Democrats destroyed that, incentivizing them to marry the state so that the women remained single moms. It wrecked the black community. And what they should have done is stay strong, develop their own community, kick butt, get to a point where they're negotiating from strength. That's what was kind of the historical thing for any culture that came in on the bottom. rose, and you saw it with boxing. What's interesting is, there used to be Jewish boxers because they were at the bottom. You see them rise through the ranks of just fighting, literally fighting their way up in society. And then once they're on top, then they can negotiate. Then they own economic freedom of their own.
So they're saying that no ID is required because black people can get their IDs.
That's the argument.
So when you are born here in the US, you get a birth certificate.
Right.
Then you go to a place and you get your passport or an ID.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
they're not capable of doing that. And it costs like $30, right? I just got my driver license, $45.
Well, you can get an ID that's not even a driver's license, which is even easier.
So driver's license, you have to learn how to drive.
Right. So the idea is absurd. The idea is only to keep fraud open.
You're illegal. That's why you can't get an ID because you don't have a visa.
Right.
Or nothing else.
Yeah, but again, what they're doing is creating chaos because within the chaos, they can cheat. So that's the whole idea of not having a single day of voting like we used to. Florida did, right? Show your ID, come in, vote. If we did that, we would have a conservative government over and over again right now in the conditions that we're in. It would go back to that kind of middle, bouncing back and forth sort of a thing, the normal pendulum swing, right? We wouldn't have what we have now, but they created the conditions of chaos. They created a month-long voting thing, vote month, essentially, instead of voting day. They created, digital, computer-driven voting systems that are suspect. They've created this whole condition for them to be able to game the system, or as they proudly called it in Time magazine when they won Joe Biden election, they called it fortifying. The Zuck bucks. Facebook. Zuckerberg put in $400 million to voting campaigns and voting boxes, mailboxes for people. All of that sort of stuff was rife with corruption.
So what does it mean to be a registered voter?
You fill out you fill out a card and you lay on, and yes, you can pick, Democrat Party, Independent, Republican, or, some of the other party affiliates.
So it's just like your perception? I'm a registered Republican?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You don't have to do anything other than just click the box,
When you vote.
When you vote, so there are rules, and again, this is where that two-party system comes in. You can only vote in the primaries that you're registered, depending on the state. Okay, so there's states where it's open primaries. You can vote for the Republican if you want. You can vote for the Democrat, regardless of whatever your affiliation is. So it's different in each state. But yeah, you just hey, I want this guy.
So Constitution says only U.S. Citizen can vote.
Correct.
No other way.
Correct, but they are dismantling that because the states, right, there's all kinds of funny rules that are being put in play right now, and then when you don't have IDs and you can register people without IDs and you can have, when everything's loose like that, they right now are importing a massive number of immigrants that they believe will vote the way of the left. They're going to vote for the Democrats because we're giving you stuff, right? They've got bus loads full of people. Just here up in Castaic the other day, a friend of mine, and they videoed it and laid it out that they were dropping off illegal immigrants coming up. And they are giving them money, these NGOs, non-government organizations, which are essentially these charitable organizations that go get big grants. The money comes from our government or comes from other sources, hundreds of millions of dollars get poured in. They're trying to create their own, new voting block to ensure victory. And what do they use? They use the tool of bribery. We will give you stuff if you vote for us.
So if you want to, for instance, November 5th, you go, or November 4th, you want to vote. What do you have to do with, what do you have to carry with you? no idea, just a voter ballot. You get a
Just
ballot,
your ballot. Yeah. So
and
yeah.
you get a ballot mailed in.
Yeah.
So immigrants, they got the ballots as well,
Yeah.
though they're not U.S. citizens.
Yeah, so you remember? Well, no, okay, so they're not supposed to, right?
Of course.
Okay, right, but they do, and there's all kinds of ways. I mean, it was shown people getting multiple ballots, people getting so there's all kinds of loose fraud happening, all over the place, and you're not allowed to say that it was rigged. You're not allowed to say that they cheated. Because you'll get clapped back with, there was all these court cases. There were not court cases. Many of these things were filed immediately and lacked standing, meaning that party did not have an injury. They lacked the position to be in that lawsuit, right? So a bunch of things got thrown out for lack of standing. A bunch of things got, they were just filed quickly, messy, all that stuff. Things did not really get to courts, but they'll say 61 times Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was not the one that filed a bunch of these. It was all kinds of different organizations. But then you had judges.
But 4 years later, right now in Georgia, there are hearings.
Oh, yeah. I mean, remember, a legitimate fraud has been in evidence. Legitimate things have come out, right? People will argue against like 2,000 Mules, if you're familiar with Dinesh D'Souza's movie where he showed all the videotapes and the satellite, so I'm drawing a blank, but the satellite record of where people were at, the GPS, GPS footage of people visiting the boxes over and over again based on their phones. That phone data was available for advertisers, right? They ordered that. They showed all of these people around these polling places go time and time again, back and forth to the planes. Then they grabbed the publicly available cameras and showed people stuffing the ballots, 10, 15, 20 ballots, throwing them in, stuffing them in, white gloves on, throw the gloves in the trash.
That's Russia. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what's happening in Russia.
Yeah, and then what?
Everything's
And then this is the trick that is played on us. Well, how come those were never prosecuted? How come they didn't get? Well, Dinesh D'Souza and the team that did that do not have the police powers to go investigate or to go and look into those things. People act as if it was really a crime, Bryce, then they would have gone after it. No. The local police department or the corrupt Department of Justice or the FBI says stand down. Oh, we don't really think that that's a big deal. There's no evidence that would have turned the tide. But when they did the math and extrapolated out, oh, no, it was plenty enough to turn the tide in those battleground states where they were concentrating on this stuff. But people don't realize also that the prosecutors have to decide to take that case, or the police department or the sheriff's department in that area has to decide to go and investigate that. And okay, we got these people on camera. I mean, they could find the identity of those folks. They chose not to. They chose to just ignore it. And again, the idea that there's no fraud. It's the same idea that's happening right now with crime here in just this very city. Crime is up, but they aren't going after certain things, and they're not prosecuting it, and they're not recording a lot of things. So therefore, crime doesn't exist. That's the argument. Okay, we saw the shoplifters go out. We filed it with our insurance. Nothing happened. So therefore, it didn't get recorded as a crime. So therefore, crime is down. Shoplifting is down because we stopped caring about it. That is the equivalent of we know that they weren't stuffing ballots because they didn't pursue it.
Yeah, but even if they now get the investigation right and they say that there was a fraud, but 4 years has passed. That's it.
Yeah,
the country went.
It's over. Yeah, I mean we got Biden. It happened.